Yeah.
Well,
We're gonna go ahead and get started. Can you hear me? I want to welcome everybody to our special board meeting study session. It's 5 o'clock. We'll call this meeting to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. And everyone please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. There we go. Did you do that or did I do that? Next up, we'll have our roll call.
Director Ray,
Absent.
Director Kelly,
Here.
Director Kingman,
He's also absent.
President Levesque,
Here.
Director Knapp,
Here.
Student Advisor Schroeder,
here.
Student Advisor LeBon,
She's not here.
Superintendent Sweetie.
Here. Thank you. Next up, we'll have our approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda as presented? Make a motion to approve the agenda. Second. It's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda as presented. Madam Clerk.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp,
The agenda is adopted. Next, we'll have our welcome and our overview of learning outcomes. Dr. Sweetie.
Well, welcome, everybody. This is our second meeting that we're focused on the progress, the mid-year progress towards our strategic plan goals. And tonight we're focusing on goals 3 and 4. So we have cabinet staff members that are going to go through and maybe not address each metric, but most of the metrics in that strategic plan, and just say what progress we're making. And so I think we'll move forward. What's the next slide? But before we go, we're going to do the same activity that we did the last time. And I thank you for those that, did this and gave me your sheets afterwards. As you listen, listen for any gaps that you're hearing, listen for barriers, and then maybe actions that we're taking or action that we should take in that particular area. So goal 3 is focused on resource stewardship, and then our goal 4 is on voices and partnerships. So just you can write down your thoughts and we'll pull it all together and type it up. So we'll go on to the next slide. Sorry, Debbie, I can't.
you just probably need to be on.
Okay, there's just the same areas. So with that, I'm going to introduce Gina. She's going to start us off with the mid-year review of, and there's 3 people that are involved in sharing the metrics in goal 3. And so I'm going to let Gina start us off.
All right, so yes, goal 3, resource stewardship. And so we're just going to go ahead and get right into some of the indicators, the key indicators that we have identified as a board. And so we'll go right into them. So that would be the next slide.
You want me to advance the
No, I
slides?
didn't need to. And the first thing we'll talk about is the audit and financial results. So here these check marks mean those are the past 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years that we've finished our audit check mark, and we've had positive audit results. We've had no audit findings, which is very beneficial for the district. They are partners with us as far as when they go out and they're looking at things. They sometimes will have recommendations or suggestions, and we're view them as partners with us. They help us make improvements and help us if there's something that is a little out of filter too. They don't look at everything, but they do things on a test basis, and they our financial statements are federal grants, and they do accountability audits as well, and look at our internal controls and legal compliance with different things. So positive audit results, and we want to keep up that track record, and we don't get those positive audit results without all of the collaboration that happens all across the district system in each department and each school building. So, one more thing about the audit, because it's going on right now, or getting started. They're auditing 4 major grants this year from last year's funds. And that is more than they've ever done, and they're doing them as major programs, but that's because of the huge influx of all those different federal grants that we got during the pandemic. So the team is working really hard to keep up with all those audit requests, and it's going well so far. And you'll hear more about that later, but it is a big undertaking to handle that team and keep them underway. So we're currently in progress. And then next.
Here, Miss Tina.
Oh,
If you can just, you're
Yeah.
close enough to the fob, it should work.
okay, red button.
Arrows back and forth.
All right. And another key indicator in our goal 3 of our strategic plan, resource stewardship, has to do with a measure of fund balance. And as you know, we've talked quite a bit about our minimum fund balance policy over the course of these months. And this is a chart that goes up on our dashboard and moves up there. We update it, and this shows quite a year's worth of history since 2008 and 09. It shows you our fund balance history. This is where it actually was at the end of 2008 and 2009 fiscal year. This little red line is what the minimum fund balance would have been target wise. You would have been needing to keep a minimum in this range. And if you follow that red dot, it increases because our annual expenditure level has increased. So 1 month's average operating cost is going up to the same as our expenditures are going up on an annual basis. But you can see we have maintained and been within our minimum fund balance. Right in here, we started going up and above because that is the onset of McCleary. So that's when everything changed with McCleary. There's a lot of different factors that have to do with that, have also to do with our levy authority and some different things going on. But that is why we've had such a healthy fund balance in these years above the minimum. And as you know, here we are coming back down. This is 21-22. We're still above our minimum, 10 million-ish. And this is what our minimum would have had us at. So there you go. And then here's a chart showing, you've seen this in our monthly reviews of our financial statements for our budget. This is the trend chart showing month to month to month and the past 4 years, including the one that we're in right now. And this is the year we're in right now, that big navy blue line, and it shows you, yes, indeed, we are in that lower trend. We're following along, and I do expect it to come along the same way that it has been. So that's that. Allocation of resources. So in this area, when we talk about using equity lens and allocating resources based on need and using feedback to determine that, this is highlights of where we have allocated resources during this the past few years, especially. So equity and last year and this year. So equity facilitators is one. We have the Speak Up curriculum. And that you've heard from Carrie Helgeson, as she's been in and talked with you about that. And then social emotional learning support. That's been a really important area. We have student support advocates that have been in and around our schools in the middle school level and high school level. We have purposeful people and character strong curriculum at the middle and high schools as well. Elementary too. And then we've had some added behavior support. We've had added specialists that have been of great assistance in relation to the unique behaviors that have been exhibiting themselves over the past few years. Here we go, continuing on, health and safety support. We've added campus monitors. That's been a great assistance to post-middle school in particular, an additional one at Arlington High School. We have additional health room staffing. So during especially the crazy time of the pandemic. And then we have our learning support. We have some really good options in our programs offerings. Open Doors program it's located at Weston and it helps our graduates that are students that are been disconnected to their high school program. And now they're getting reconnected and getting able to be graduated. We have our AOP program, Arlington Online Program, special education programs that are great design and unique programs. And then we have our summer school program as well. And just to talk a little more about our preparation and planning for the 23-24 budget, we have been, as you know, active with the Budget Advisory Task Force. They've been meeting on a monthly basis since November. We are having the 3 community forums. We did the one at the DPAC in January. We've had to reschedule the one that would have been February at Post. It's actually Wednesday of this week at Post Middle School. And then we're working on the schedule because we are hoping to move up that 3rd public forum. And we're hoping to also move up the Budget Advisory Task Force as well, so that we can do our the best duty that we possibly can to people that would be impacted with their jobs. So trying to get that information out earlier, so that than our initial plan had indicated. So we have been actively going out to the staff departmental meetings. We've gotten to almost everywhere except for a few more departments to go to and Weston High Schools tomorrow. And so we've been sharing with staff and taking them through similar activities, the feedback that where we're gathering the hopes and questions and worries and ideas. And talking about why we're here, what are the factors that have brought us here with the perfect enrollment and this school funding formula and everything that's contributing to needing to do the reductions. So the reduction resolution and plan, like I said, we're still working on getting that solidified, but we are hoping to move up the timeline and get that information out sooner to the groups and honor the process of getting that feedback and then coming to the board as well. To have a draft of that, we're hoping March 27 would be a draft or resolution with a draft plan of where and how high level of the proposed reductions in order to get where we need to get with right size in our budget. And Chris, is there anything else that I needed to add to that as we've been talking?
Just like the draft resolution and plan would be on the 27th, and then on April 10th, which is study session, we would have a deeper conversation, and then hopefully the board consider approving the plan of reduction so that we can move forward. That first stage of reductions, first level.
And I think that's my last slide. So before I hand it over to next up, do you have any questions?
Is our student advisor still with us?
I am. I do not currently have any questions.
All right, just want to make sure I don't forget you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kyle. I was gonna say, when you think of this section, just ponder what barriers the reductions might create, so you can consider that thought, ponder that thought. Yeah.
Here we go. You on here, so talking about staff and retention and how we're doing with our diversity with our staff. So we've had a high of back here in 2019-20 of 95%. We dipped down a little bit. Last year we had a record number, I think, of retirements and resignations. So we dipped down a bit for our retention. This is probably a little hard to read, but this is last year, 21-22, and this is this year in terms of our different groups. So 1.61, and everything stayed pretty consistent. We're up a little bit in a couple of areas. Black on Hispanic went from 0.13% to 0.5%. So, small gains in certain spots. Hispanic 2.2% to 2.6%. So we're going up a little bit in certain areas. White went down from almost 94% down to about 93%. And these are our total numbers of staff down here, 735 versus 747 last year. So we are down a little bit in staff numbers. And stop me if you have questions at all. This is just our educational level experience. So total teachers, again, numbers are hard to read. These are from our data dashboard also. So you can see, and Gina's pointed this out in some of her slides that we've, increased our staff significantly here in the last few years. We're up to 335 this year. Average years of experience at a pretty level here. If you look at, this kind of over here, this is about between 14 and 15 years or so. That's generally where we are, and that's where we're right now. 14.6 years of experience for our average teacher that we have, and percentage of teachers with a master's degree. So we have 76%. So that's a good thing and a bad thing because it's really expensive. We are no longer funded on what used to be the salary allocation staff mix model. So now we're just funded on average teachers, so which is typically less than what our master's degree teachers make. So we get a good thing and a bad thing. So training and employee relations, that's another goal 3 area for HR. So we have our paraeducator training. We have 135 that are required to do the training. So all of them have to get, our goal is to get all of them through at least the fundamental course of study this year. That's the requirement. Now, whether we'll get there, I'm not sure. We have 95 that have completed it so far. So we're on, doing pretty well, but quite a few left to get through this next few months. And so hopefully, and I've been tracking it, but some.
And Eric, is that a new thing?
That's new as of a couple of years ago. Yeah.
There's a new law that was implemented.
Yeah. So it was implemented 2019-20 was the first year we had to start doing it. And so at that time, teachers had to get, or paraeducators had to get 14 hours of training each year.
But where do they get the training? How does that-
We provide it. And that first year actually was ended up being COVID year. So we got all of our paras that were with us at that time through the training the first year instead of over the course of 2 years. That was one of the only benefits of COVID, as far as I'm concerned. Was phenomenal course of study. So we got everybody through in 1 year instead of 2. We people in teaching and learning stepped up and helped develop modules and those kinds of things. Now we contract the modules out through the ESD. And so we provide some of the training in person, like our orientations. The district day counted as part of that as well for the equity portion. And then they do it online on their own time through the ESD. They have a module set up through them, they've created them, and so they do a good job. And it's hard, pairs are all on different schedules. So this allows them to do it on their own pace and at their own, when it's convenient for them when they have time. Yeah.
What kind of training does that cover? Like, what are they learning?
It covers everything from like district roles and responsibilities. So it's fundamental course of training. This is like really basic type thing. So, like what I do in the orientation is the district roles and responsibilities, technology, so put on technology. The equity portion was that I was in there. There's a communications one. There's a I think diversity is, which is different than the equity. There's 12 modules.
Is it mostly student focused? That sounds a little more at the high level, like adult, like what your role is, but
There's also like behaviors, a classroom management behavior module.
and do they do right response training?
No, it's not, that's not part of it.
Okay,
Yeah, it's a
Okay.
little higher level. It's not, yeah. A lot of our parents do have to go through that. It's one of our complaints about, and I was just at a conference here and went through a session on fundamental course of study, and for the most part, I would say district people and people who are providing the training don't really, this is not their favorite thing, because like right response,
Yeah.
a lot of times we think it should count for fundamental course of study, because a lot of parents have to get
it's
that.
applicable.
It's very applicable, but it's, exactly what they need.
Yeah.
But it doesn't really count. It will count towards their general certificate, which is later, but
Okay.
it doesn't count, and it seems like it should. but-
And it's mandatory for them to acquire the certificate, like within the 2-year window?
Well, actually, now they have to get this, the fundamental course of study, that's what FCS is.
Yeah.
I should have spelled it out, but fundamental course of study is required now within the year that you're hired.
Okay,
Unless you're hired after, I mean, if you're hired after the year starts, you technically get another year, but.
Right.
My goal is even if you're hired mid-year, to try to get you as far as.
grandfather, yeah. And then you have, and you're required to get that, but it doesn't, entitle you to more money. It's just like, that's part of the expectation of having that job. Okay.
That doesn't really carry more money. Our Friday early releases have allowed people to have time to do it. We do get funding for it from the state. The state does reimburse us for funding, for the hours of the paramedic spent to do it, but we've already basically built that into their schedule.
Okay.
And then after the fundamental course of study, which is 28 hours of coursework, 28 clock hours essentially, then they have to do 70 hours within 5 years, which is the general certificate. So that's works out to 14 hours a year for 5 years. They can get it done earlier than that. We've got 18 that have completed it so far, and I'm guessing we're gonna have quite a few more that will complete it this year. I would guess we'll at least double that number, maybe even triple it by the end of the year, because there's online options, there's people, and this is what I like about the paratech training is that now our paratech can be involved with the training that's already happening at the buildings. Working alongside with teachers, getting some of the same training. The CPI training can count for that, and there's a lot of different things that they can do. Summer academy, so a lot of things that we want them to be doing, which now we have a way to pay for it and sort of requirements. So that's nice. And then the last thing I'll talk about, so we've got our labor management type things. So we have regular meetings with the AEA, PSE, monthly or twice a month, depending on the month. And those have been going fairly well, trying to solve problems as they come up or before they come up. And then we have negotiations with our PSE, which hopefully is going to start this month. We're just waiting for them to give us a date. We're ready on our end, but we're waiting for them. So they've got a big group. It's hard because they have a wall-to-wall union. So custodians to secretaries to bus drivers, everybody's part of the same group. So there's lots of input. So should be another exciting adventure this spring. I think that's it for me. It is.
Any questions for?
Application of strategic plan goal 3, the capital facilities, is, we've been living it since 2020. We lived it beforehand too, we just didn't have the resources available to us in order to put it in place, so that we needed to have done. So as part of, so tonight we're going to cover the capital facilities program goals that support plan goal 3. I'm going to give you a real quick calendar review, an update on levy funded projects and the master facilities plan process. So we've been reviewing these in the facilities advisory committee, and this is really more of an extension of what we told the community in 2020 when we ran the capital levy, that every project that we have would meet one or more of these goals, provide adequate functional, and anything that's in red has been edited by the facilities advisory committee and added, and anything that's in bold italics is a carryover. I just added some language to kind of flesh it out a little bit in the meantime. Provide adequate functional capacity that supports student achievement in a fiscally responsible manner, promote and protect safety and security, improve efficiency in utilities and staffing utilization. And this is, a little bit nuanced in that we want to have buildings that are simple and easy to maintain, that don't require us to have, any more maintenance crew than we've already got. That's part of that staffing utilization area, and extend the useful life of existing buildings and facilities as appropriate. And what's appropriate? It's kind of a judgment call. And right now, the facilities advisory committee will give you a preview of their recommendation. Facilities Advisory Committee is maintaining its recommendation to build a replacement proposal school in the future. So that would be maybe a bright line test we could apply to what is as appropriate. It doesn't make sense for us to extend the useful life of the current building posts. That's an example. Calendar, you've seen this calendar before in other presentations. We're going to work up from Election Day in 2024. That's our next our next reasonable. We don't have a need to bring a levy question to voters in terms of a capital levy or an EP&L levy. A bond question is we can present prior to that time. But our current EP&L and capital levies expire at the end of 2024. If an opportunity, our first opportunity to renew both or either one of those is in February of 2024, that would require a resolution adopted by the board by December 15th, 2023. If the board is going to take that kind of action, then they need to deliberate on what would be included on a ballot. And so that period of time on this calendar begins in August. It's really in actuality, it's always happening. We just have a formal recommendation from the Facilities Advisory Committee or what would be included in the next election as well. As we get closer to this date, then there'll be more substance to begin bond and levy planning. This is something that the Facilities Advisory Committee is working on beginning in April. The facility, try not to use too much jargon. Use the FCS. Oh, I don't have jargon. I started looking through it. Oh, there's plenty. Sorry. The Facilities Advisory Committee will finalize the recommendation of the superintendent regarding facilities at the end of March. Based on that's our meeting date is March 30th. We will have the draft of the facilities plan on March 24th. And then we're doing this process right now, updating the master facilities. So just as I was looking at this a few moments ago, preparing for tonight, I was thinking, man, I should split out all of these projects individually, because when I combine them like that, the list gets shorter. Really, it's just amazing. And again, I'm not trying to toot my own horn here. This is not something I did on my own. This is a result of a team effort, our project team, Granahan Architects, Fred Owen, all the maintenance staff that are involved in this, all the building administrators that provided input on what the project should look like, and all the finance department support staff that have been involved in this as well. It really has been a district effort to get all this work done. It's really it gives it a little bit of a short shrift when I combine all these things, because it's not been just, oh yeah, we just ordered this and it happened. It's been a lot of work to make these things happen. So these are all the projects levy funded that are complete to date. I couldn't fit this on this list without making the print way too small. So we've got a new form or a new page we added. And the board will get a copy of these. A copy of these slides.
Sure, yeah. They'll be on the board packet.
Okay, so you can go through these individually. I'm not going to spend the time on it right now, but almost everything that we said we would do with the levy funds has been done. Projects that are remaining, Kent Prairie site access improvements. We're going to bring a contract to you at your meeting on March 13th. I can tell you right now that the bid that we received was substantially less than what we thought it was going to be. So we're in good shape there. That's going to be a huge change to that area. How many of you know that's you've seen it, all right? It is absolutely another benefit from it is that we're running out of parking spaces at Camp Prairie. And then there is a student health issue involved here as well, because you got those cars queuing up in the fire lane right beside the building, and when it's cold outside, people leave their vehicles running spot emissions to find their way into the building. So getting those cars away from the building would be a great benefit to the students. And when there are pedestrians on site too, would be helpful. So you'll see the contract for that on March 13th. HVAC controls update, you just approved the contract for that at your last meeting, along with HVAC improvements at Weston. This project came in substantially under budget, as well as these projects. So we're in a really competitive bidding environment right now. I'm going to go over the financials in just a moment on the next page. So all this work is scheduled to begin June 23rd and be complete by August 18th. We might have a couple of small items bleeding over into the start of the school year, but the contractors know that we're not going to be disrupting class on their behalf. They need to get that most disruptive work completed prior to August 18th. And installation of portables at Eagle Creek. Should change this too. We received that bid. And presented to you at the last meeting as well. And we've submitted a purchase order last week to portal and our space and security. So the likelihood of us receiving those portables by the end of July is great. Thank you for that.
So Brent, are you looking to have the portables at ECE up and running for the school year 2023?
Yes.
I was gonna also ask that, to me, that would be really pivotal to do some good PR stuff on that, get some videos, because if we're looking at running them on, I want the public to know their money is being well spent.
And we're working with Strategies 360 right now about messages that are resonating with the community.
And the temporary parking or driving.
Well, that's gonna be huge, and there's some parent education that's gonna have to go on, community education.
Yeah.
As far as how you approach the school once that's involved, so that'll bring attention to it all by itself. But we're gonna talk about, the key points that I expressed, the goals of the program and how the projects that we completed meet those goals, and you'll see in the next slide, we've done it in a very fiscally responsible manner. So the goal is to help people build a sense of trust that we're gonna, the strategies refers to as promises made, promises kept. Any questions about projects? Okay, let me go over here where the numbers are. So this is, I want to focus on this word estimated, because there are items within here that I may not be aware of. For example, when we start breaking ground at Kent Prairie, we've done our best to try to understand what's underground there, but you can't ever tell until you actually dig the holes. So there may be some costs associated with this, with Kent Prairie that we can't anticipate right now. Same with when we start digging into a building. There's stuff that happens that we do our best to plan for that may or may not be realized until we actually start tearing the building apart. But bottom line is that after we finish these projects, which will be the projects that we told the people we would do on the ballot, we'll still have around $6.2 million available in capital levy money. So this will be very helpful for us. There are options that come along with this. First of all, we get to say we completed everything on the list, with this one exception here, the fire suppression system at Eagle Creek. When Gina brings the budget proposal to you for 23-24, going to ask her to include a dedication of funds in the capital projects fund so that it's clear that that money is intended to be used for the fire suppression system when we do the modernization project at Eagle Creek. So that, we're being as transparent as we can regarding. Am I overloading this thing by being right next to it? Is it okay if I stand next to this guy?
It's fine here.
Okay. So when we're done with the project that we said we would do, we'll have this amount of money left over. And I can tell you right now that 3 million of this is attributable to some state match funds that we weren't planning on. That we found that we were eligible for after we began the high school project. But then the other 3 million is attributable to careful competitive bid management and getting some good deals, negotiating some good deals. So we've been very fortunate making it through COVID with all these projects. COVID did have a kind of a depressing effect on the competitive marketplace as well. Some folks were trying to keep their people working, and we were able to find some bargains because of that. So we've had good luck in as far as the financial use of funds and the funds that were provided to us by the voters. Any questions about this? Yes, Mary.
The state matching funds, is that just from the classrooms at Arlington High School?
Yes,
So
we had
a
a,
lot of money. How much does it, like each classroom gets a certain?
well, we had a certain number of unhoused students that were calculated as being at Arlington High School. And by adding the classrooms we did, the state determined that we met that unhoused student need and were able to provide us, that's about a little under half of the cost of the project.
And the next follow-up question on that is when we have portable installed at Eagle Creek, will that also increase some kind of matching fund, or is it only for like actual solid building, not portable?
Portables don't come into the equation when for determining state matching funds. Our next opportunity as far as state matching funds lies with post middle school. There's a category of state matching funds called new in lieu of modernization. So if we chose to modernize post, we wouldn't be eligible for these state matching funds. But if we build a new post, then we would be eligible for state matching funds. And the last time it was about $5 million. Sure, the need is still there. It's not driven, or the opportunity is still there. It's not driven by the number of students that we have unhoused at the middle school level. It's determined by the age of the building.
I have another question.
Okay.
About the fire suppression system. What is the expectation for how long that's gonna take, and what are some of the needs to make that happen?
So following the passage of the levy and the timing of the sequence of projects, McGranahan brought me a realization that they had that if we did the fire suppression system, that we would not be able to install the carpet, the flooring in the building, the updated flooring in the building. And I had a conversation with the principal there and say, hey, which would you rather have now? Because the fire suppression system would really be more appropriately done in the context of a modernization where we would rip all the ceilings out of all the buildings or the entire building and look at other things like electrical and HVAC improvements that would go along with taking the ceiling out of the building. So that is kind of dependent on when we choose to do a modernization of the building.
And when would someone want to do a modernization of the building? What does that cost?
So a modernization would require evacuation of the building for 1.5 years. So we would generally tie that with the construction of a new elementary school, or we would do it in phases, where we would schedule the building, a wing of the building for modernization 1 year and take each wing over the next 3 years and try to get it done in the summertime. Otherwise, we can't have kids in the building during modernization because it's so impactful in terms of what would not be available that they have now. They wouldn't have electricity, they wouldn't have conditioned air. Those are two big things. Okay, master plan update. I included this slide here as a reminder, so let you know that we've been working on the Facilities Advisory Committee has been working on this since September. And the end result is going to be not just a recommendation for facility improvements over the next 4-year period, but facility improvements over the next 30 years. These are the chapters that are going to be included in the master facility plan update. Growth, system repair, replacement technology, and functional improvements. Now, for the growth period, we're only looking out through 2031, because with the exception of some areas, Eagle Creek and Pioneer in particular, we're not expecting a lot of growth that we don't have space for already. The addition at Arlington High School met our growth needs until 2031, and Post is rated at a sufficient capacity to meet the growth needs at the middle school level, Post and Howard combined through 2031. That doesn't mean we can't pursue replacement of that building. It's not every building project has to be related to growth. Functional improvements would be the category I would put Post under. System repair and replacement. There's a lot of roofs that we need to pay attention to. There's HVAC systems. We've made some improvements with HVAC systems, but really that was at our most vulnerable buildings like Kent Prairie and Creek and Weston High School. There's going to be other systems that need to come or need our attention in the future. Technology, this isn't about laptop computers or desktops. This is about the infrastructure that supports technology within the district. There's server rooms that are outdated and not meeting the need. There's cabling across the district, inside of the buildings and between the buildings that needs to be improved. So that's what the technology refers to. Functional improvements, these are changes to the buildings that could make the building better serve the educational needs. This was determined by interviewing principals. I don't have the full list of functional improvements available to speak to you about today, but I'll have that March 17th. So each one of these categories, again, the growth looks out through 2031, but the system repair, replacement, and functional improvements looks out through 2050. And they're divided into 4-year chunks that align with election cycles, because we can't do any of this without having funding that's approved by the voters. So we look at what we need to do across a 4-year period. So are there roof systems that need to be replaced between 2024 and 2028? Well, yes, is the answer to that question, but which ones? Are there roof systems that are going to be fine throughout the 30-year period we're looking at? Yes. So we wouldn't schedule roof replacements for those buildings until the end of the study period in 2050. So I just want to make sure that that concept is clear, that you're going to see numbers in the recommendation that are going to be based on what we think the needs are through 2028. And then the plan itself, which is, basically the recommendation is going to be an extract from the plan. That plan is going to go all the way through 2050. Any questions about that? Okay, that's my presentation.
So thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
So that's goal 3. So I want you to take a minute to kind of just look at your notes, and then we're gonna just have just a brief discussion about the gaps that you might have thought about as a result of this conversation, or the barriers, actions we're taking, possible adjustments to consider. So just take a minute and look at your notes.
Are you still on there, Kyle?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay, so in case you don't have the form in front of you, I think I mentioned it, and I think you can see the PowerPoint, but just, you can jot down a few of those things so you can join us in the discussion in a few moments.
All right, sounds good.
Thank you. Take about 45 minutes, or it's not 45 minutes, 45 seconds. Finish writing your last sentence.
Okay. So, this goal 3 is really focused on, the resources that we have, and those include the people in our system, the facilities that we have in our system, our management of the money, the fiscal part of it, and so all that we're doing in the support of student learning. So as we're thinking about, all of those things are important, and they all support goal 1, which is student learning and achievement. So were there any gaps that you identified, and this could be any kind of a gap that you might have heard or saw? Any thoughts?
I personally haven't seen any gaps. I felt that many areas were clearly addressed with thought and intention, so I just don't see anything. I felt it was very succinct, and everyone had their specialty area they were talking about. I thought it was very clear, and I felt confident in the information that was presented. I think that everything was examined. And it was pretty clear to me.
It might not, right, no, and it might not be, we didn't really see here, but I know that when you go to our demographics on our district website, that it shows that our students that are white, we have 71% between 71 and 75%. And yet I remember when Eric had said that we're 91, but the only gap that I could put down was that gap of the difference between the representation, the kids see themselves, a little bit of a gap there, which we're working on. It's a slow process.
Yeah.
But thanks. Anything else?
I think that we start with gaps because I have so many other good things.
Well,
But I was thinking, we'll get there. The gaps was, the only thing that I noticed was that, the gap between how many parents have completed that fundamental course of study and how many have not. I wondered what is the barrier there with that. And then, I was kind of thinking for the facilities. I mean, I'm always thinking about a lot of things that are forefront in my mind with facilities is planning for climate change and accessibility for students. So, I don't even know if that's on the radar of government funding or planning or what they recommend for planning for our facilities, but I just think about how it has changed just in these last few years. We smoke season now. That was really forefront on our mind this last year. So yeah.
well, and we have a study, the study that we have to comply with,
The Clean Buildings Act.
yeah, the Clean Buildings Act, which is unique too, in that it's causing us to think of some of the environmental type of impact of some of our facilities, and it's just, we're assessing that, and then the funding for making amends, so it's not impact.
Well, I can make some comments.
Sure.
Last week, we just came to the conclusion of calculating our compliance with the state mandated guidelines for energy use. And we're in good shape. We meet the target or well below it on all of our buildings that are included through 2030 now. So there are, in 2030, the standards will be changed and they'll be revised. And then we have to reevaluate at that point, what do we need to do to continue to be in compliance? The things that are left before us include an energy management plan and an operations and maintenance plan that within a prescribed formula template that the state has provided. The energy management plan, the biggest target or goal for that is to communicate with our staff and students and the community at large that there are expectations that the state has as far as our energy usage and how can they contribute to it. So we make them aware that their energy is a resource that has constraints and that we need to take efforts to conserve it as much as we can. And really that's, I joke about this, but it's about space heaters and personal refrigerators in the classroom. So, yeah, and it's going to be, how do we talk to people about not having those things in their spaces? So
I brought my blanket tonight.
give everybody a replacement blanket.
Yes, that's it.
But, that's going to happen over the next 7 years. Our compliance clock starts ticking in 2025. So we're well ahead of the game in terms of compliance. So that doesn't mean we can't take steps to improve or add on to our ability to add solar panels to our buildings or look at other forms of heating buildings like geothermal is probably the most efficient. Bottom line, that we're in good shape in terms of our energy usage, and that's a testament to our maintenance crew and constant attention to the energy management programs that we use.
Like I said, to dovetail on that is that I think that again, that's something to promote to our public, our constituents, and say, we are good stewards. We will continue to be good stewards of the money that we have and the resources we have. Maintenance crew, we have people at home who are understanding what the requirements are. And I would say too, I would be probably, Eric would probably agree, and Mary, but I would want to be at or above, honestly. That's how I would like to see. I would like to be at the forefront of, like you said, geothermal. This is something that, is less common, but something we think that we will go to, or we could go to. I'd like to be a district that is ahead of the curve on that.
Yeah.
I don't want to be like lagging behind them. I know this for myself and my husband with the state water standards. Washington State superseded federal standards on water. And that's pretty impressive. That's a good thing. And I'd like to see our district something like that as well. I think that'd be a good thing. And I think we're getting people in our town, right, in our community that might be thinking in that realm too. So that's a positive.
Mary, did you have anything?
I wrote down money as a big gap.
Very true. Kyle, do you have anything else to add?
I was honestly struggling to find any gaps, but the one thing that I was able to come up with was like in regards to just like building work and different things like that. I said some schools, like the buildings themselves, need more work, and so other ones aren't able to be as much of a focus. And my big example there is obviously Post. Just needs more work done than other buildings.
Thank you, Kyle. Okay, well, we took some time to really look at the gaps, but at the same time, we were talking about barriers, so the gaps and the barriers together. And does anybody, we don't have to all mention one, but is there anybody that wants to mention an action that we're taking or an action that we should consider that you'd like to say out loud?
I don't know if this would be, I wrote this under the heading of barriers, but I said possible reduction of support staff and employee positions that are essential to the support teachers and students. So knowing that we are going to have to reduce, my thought is, I think you're in the same camp, is reducing things more than people. because I know how. I know how much during COVID, our teachers implored us to keep their parents with us. And as much as we tried, I think they were not necessarily in that schematic at the time. But I do know from understanding special ed and those sort of things, I really, and as a teacher myself, I know how critical it is that I rely on other people who are not teachers to help me do my job well and to meet the needs. So that to me would be an action of just that awareness.
Thank you.
It's hard to hire more diverse staff when we're not really hiring more people and actually letting people go.
It's true.
I was really impressed though that diversity has increased. And I love seeing the love of learning among teachers, that so many teachers have masters. It's like, I know it's a financial barrier, but it was, you love to learn from people who love to learn. So, and then possible actions to consider. I think I just thought more public communication regarding the facilities, and which is happening. You already answered that. And I was wondering if there was any sort of community survey that's going out about the budget that's different from the forums. Was that already mentioned at another?
No, we actually will have a survey that's going out.
Okay.
The budget advisory task force is reviewing a draft tomorrow night, but it'll be a very short, brief, just a 3 or 4 question survey that's going to go out to everybody. This after, it'll go out on Wednesday, and then, because then their next meeting, the budget advisory task force will review the results. They took a look at the last meeting of the survey that Everett had sent out, so we're trying to say, I like that part of it, or I don't like this part of it, and that's what we're pulling together tomorrow.
I think it was just really great because we went to Weston and we saw in Presidents and saw all the amazing things happening in the school. And I want everybody to see that, like, even if they don't have kids in school, you know? So thank you.
Kyle, do you have anything on the ideas or actions, possible actions? Nothing.
In terms of like possible actions, I think just I really like the community outreach stuff that we're doing. I mean, we're already doing it, so I guess it's not possible, but just like the facilities advisory committee and the budget task force are what I specifically put down, just things like that, and the voices events, I think are really good ideas.
Yeah, no, thank you. And I like the phrase that, the promises that we made, that we keep them, and that we tell people that we've kept the promises. But then when we have not completed something or it can't be completed, then we're transparent about that.
And just a quick question, are we doing anything with the city in terms of the city council where we would present any information of what the traffic flow change might look like for Kent Prairie?
Not with the electeds.
Okay.
But with permitting authorities,
Sure.
yeah.
Sure, I just wondered if that would be an opportunity to address like city people, like people that are in the Arlington, to have that conversation. Again, it's just one more thing I think we could do to get the public aware, because that's a pretty, at least on this end of Arlington, it's a pretty pivotal intersection.
Yeah, and this, I've heard through, back channels that the city is very interested in getting the project done.
Yeah, so it'd be a win-win, is what I'm saying. We can go there as a team and say, look, Arlington's school.
Impact traffic, is that kind of what you're?
Yeah, I just feel like I know for myself, I go, oh gosh, what time is it? Oh, I didn't take the right turn, but yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
you feel that when you don't have the kids to drop off, but I'm just paralleling that. I think that might be a win.
At least it'll, decrease the temperature there at dismissal time. It's pretty hot.
Yeah.
So Mary, on the agenda, there is a possible break, or we can keep.
Please, yeah.
I'm good. I'm just gonna go.
So with that, we wanna.
Yeah, let's
So
give her a break.
I'm gonna invite Gary Sable.
Director of Communication to come up, and he'll share progress towards the metrics and strategic goals of the board.
Okay, good evening, directors. Gary Sable, Director of Communication. I'm here to talk about goal 4, which on the strategic plan brochure, that last flap there. And as we're going through this, what we're going to talk about are the different metrics that this is kind of the main part, kind of your headline, subhead here, and then all the metrics are underneath that. So that's what I'm gonna go through in this presentation. So goal 4, as you know, it's all about voice and partnerships. Students, families, staff, and community members will engage and partner with schools and the district in the education of students by increasing communication, partnerships, volunteering, and sharing their voices, input, and feedback. So again, these are the first part of the metrics that we'll talk about. So this one is number of partnerships with local community organizations. And we have more than 30 partnerships with community organizations all throughout the Arlington area. And I just put a few up here, certainly huge partner for the Stillwater Tribe. I can't even talk about all the things that they've done for us and our students, and they're amazing. So we love this partnership and others as well. This shows a partnership with the city. This was we visited the high school and talked about some of the different curriculum and programs at the high school and really went into depth in a lot of those. I know a lot of the board went to that as well. And that was a great opportunity, the mayors there and some other folks. And this is great. It was really,
Workforce, I think that's the workforce.
yes, the workforce, yes.
Joy.
Oh, yeah, in the middle, right there. Yeah, but that was a great opportunity. This, of course, was the food truck last year. The Arlington High School students had a big fundraiser, got a lot of money. I think it was like close to $19,000 for the food truck, and that is done. They have the food truck. I've seen pictures of it, so that's awesome. Just another way to promote those great partnerships. This actually is a picture we took in front of, I think it's Eagle Creek. And this was actually a builder in the area who was building a home or apartments. LGI builders, and just again, kind of a different partnership, but a partnership nonetheless. This is bringing families into the Arlington area. So just wanted to show the wide variety of different partners that the district partners with. So
And can I make a comment about that? So LGI is building Country Charm, Gilman Walk. they call it.
That's right.
And they have a big sign in their entrance when you enter the development. It says excellent schools, and then it's got a picture of kids.
I see that sign.
Arlington schools underneath that. So they were really great to tour around.
good partnership. And if you have questions, start this ask me in a row. Okay, this is the number of registered families / community volunteers. And before I talk about this, I just wanted to, the past week or so, we've been going out to the different elementary schools, shooting video of the kindergarten classes. We'll be putting together a kindergarten video. Not so much that, hey, kindergarten registration is open, but really talk about the benefits of kindergarten to our families. So we can let people know how great kindergarten is, how critical it is. And as I was at, this is President's, I'm sorry, Pioneer, this is a Pioneer. This was a volunteer who was working with the students on some of the, I guess they're reading books and things like that. So it was great seeing a volunteer and in particularly a male volunteer. We don't have as many male volunteers, and you could really see the kids really gravitate. It was cool to see that in the classrooms. Anyway, just wanted to mention that's a picture of a volunteer. And you can see this is, the numbers are a little bit in arrears, but this is kind of shows you some of the different numbers in our safe visitor system. And when volunteers, just so you know, when they come to our schools, they go through a background check through the safe visitor program just to keep make sure for their peace of mind, our peace of mind, just because they're working with students, and so just to make sure everybody's vetted before they enter our schools. Number of families and community members on district committees. This is actually seems to grow every year, seems to grow and grow, which is awesome. We would love, families and community members in our schools and just being an active part of our district. So certainly another acronym ACE, everybody knows the Advisory Council for Education. We love acronyms in education.
I love that you spelled out every single acronym.
Because I dislike acronyms.
I give you 100 bucks.
See, I try. Yeah, no, it's just one of those things that, you see those all the time. So I try to avoid that whenever possible, but, and this is again, CTE, Career and Technical Ed Advisory, and this one is comprised of, not only some families, but a lot of workplace folks as well. They give a lot of, in fact, they serve on. Brian Long can tell you all about it, but I know they get input on the curriculum, the programs. They're actually, I think, sort of instructors on different things. I don't know a lot about that, but I know Brian Long can talk for hours about that.
And it's required of the programs to have, expert advisors, I guess, they're advisors, but they're expert in the fields,
Right.
the career fields.
Community Truancy Board, CTB, that are acronym. We have 4 on that. The Facilities Advisory Committee, FAC. There you go. Instructional Materials and Program Committee, IMPC. There you go, another one.
And each of these have, they should have, I don't know about, I guess not all of them, but most of them have board, membership, board member memberships, so on them. Mike, let's see, first one for Ace. Marion, yeah, I'm sure he's been on it. I'm not sure the advisory board, I'm not, possibly Mike Robinson will know. And then, not sure is on the Truancy board, on the FAC, of course, there's, Mike Ray was on the Facility Advisory Committee. And Mike Kingman is on the Instructional Materials and Program Committee. And
then, of course, RAP, the reopening, we don't want to talk about that one anymore because hopefully that's in the past.
that was the Budget Advisory Task Force.
Yes, that's true. That's another one, yeah.
23 plus.
And then the equity team, so it's a fairly new one as well. So as you can see, it keeps expanding and that's great. Yeah, as they either dissolve or add new, committees, it's great. So. Questions about that? Number of school messenger communications. So this is something I do a lot of, and it's interesting. You kind of see.
What was going on in 2020? Why not come in?
Yeah, I tried to think about that, but it's, yeah, and as you know, right during COVID, we were, whether it was, the child nutrition pickup of the sites, constant communication with that. The schools communicate a lot during COVID, which is what they needed because everything was off-site more or less. And so, yeah, this number, although it's interesting that this number for this, just this past year is fairly high. It's just, I think that's a testament to, I do some of that as well, but to our schools, really our schools value the importance of communication. And that's critical. Yes,
Does
Mary.
anybody ever complain if you're communicating too much?
Sometimes.
Yes, there's a few.
Not
Yeah.
like a great majority of people.
It
Well,
depends.
we have
Yeah. For me personally, I'm
Like
very
snow days, they're like, stop it.
less about snow days,
Okay.
more about just, I'm very cognizant of that because I try not to think personally so out for the district too much. Because I know the schools are really communicating a lot too, and parents.
And the teachers are.
Yeah,
emailing
right,
separately
so-
to the principal and-
Yeah, less for school messenger, the teachers don't really use that, but definitely the school level. But yeah, teachers using another app or whatever they're using, there's so many different programs. It's just, parents don't want to be constantly bombarded with communication, so we're all kind of. over.
Parents are always constantly.
I know,
bombarded
see, I.
By all kinds of things, not just school.
Yes, we just hope that the really important stuff goes to the top and make sure that they're really paying attention to that, so. Any questions about school messenger? I know you've all seen that before. So. Okay, district social media stats, both the blessing and a curse, social media, yeah, okay. So, and you can see, Facebook, every year, we keep going up a little bit, and this is just, I think, just the nature of social media. It tends to grow if you're sending information out. Really sending it out and getting it back, it's a little more two-way, depends on how you look at it. So Facebook's increasing, Twitter keeps going up a little bit too. And Twitter, I don't think is quite as, like the day-to-day impactful, but certainly during emergencies, Twitter is huge. And that's why we, really maintain that and try to expand it as we can, because it can be critical. Gosh forbid we have, bad things happen. So Twitter is great. Just this past year, we started Instagram. I fought for years not to do Instagram. I finally did it. So,
TikTok, when's TikTok?
yeah, so talking about Instagram. So we just started, we have 64 followers, which isn't a lot, but it is actually, it's more than that now, but it's just I think it's another way to communicate with our stakeholders, really share information in the way they want to receive the information. Still, email is still number one, and when we send out the surveys, you've seen those, email still number one, but Facebook, social media, this is another way to share information. So. Yeah, no TikTok. The number of press releases, this doesn't, I mean, it's interesting because press releases are, yes, it's sent to the press, but it's really sharing it on our social media outlets, our website, sometimes with families, via email, depending on what the press release is. And it's even more important, I think, to share in those other mediums, not the press, because the press keeps contracting. The North County Outlook, I think in October, kind of went away. Arlington Times during COVID went away. So, yes, I think, our own district methods of communication are becoming more and more important. I mean, but it's still important to communicate with the press as well, but it's just the number of opportunities when they would actually come out and cover a story are becoming fewer and fewer. Number of student advisors. This is another category that keeps expanding and expanding, which is great. This is the student advisors for this year with Aaron Jones in the middle. This was taken on District Day. Great day. So, and you can see certainly, Kyle and is aware of the board of directors. We have 2 student advisors to that. Advisory Council for Education. We have
4 or 6. I mean, we added some.
It kind of depends on the year. It kind of expands and contracts, depends on how many.
But more than we initially started
Yeah.
having, and then 7 years ago, we had 2, but we've
Right.
expanded it.
Yeah, and I think the idea was, these are students who are interested in serving, and let's take advantage of that and.
We can't all come on the same night. There are so many.
Right, yeah, typically these are students who are involved in so many things, so it's great that we can use different committees, and so the other ones are the district community equity team, of course, advisory task force and student advisory council. But yeah, and there are other things even outside this, like the city's youth
Right.
You
council. Thank you, Kat, that's- So yeah, there's some really we have amazing students, so let's.
It's increased significantly the
Oh,
number
yeah.
of students and then the student advisory council has individuals that are not part of these other committees that are on that number. Good.
Students and family perceptions of the learning and working environment. So this is, you've seen the survey results. I shared them end of summer, early fall. This is just kind of pulling out a few just so you can kind of see these again in terms of what this metric is. So this is the family one first. I have a positive impression about the quality of education that takes place in Arlington schools, and you'll see mostly agree to strongly agree. This is 2022 is right here. So strong agree went down a little bit, but went up a little bit on an agree. Certainly trying to lower these ones. So still working on that. My child's school is a place where all students are challenged and supported to do their best. Again, you'll see up a little bit on that one, down a little bit on agree. So that's good. Student perceptions. The teachers at my school support my learning needs. Where are we at here? Strongly agree. Which one? Oh, so 2021 is the black one here. So that went up slightly on strongly agree and slightly down on agree. So kind of a wash, I would say. My teachers are great at helping me to believe in myself as a learner who can meet high expectations and challenge myself. And again, strongly agree went up pretty good amounts, about 5% there. Went down about the same amount for agree. So
the dark one is the year before and
oh,
so what are the things?
sorry, I totally that's right. So yeah, strong agree went down this year and agree went up. Yeah, just the opposite of what I said.
I'm just looking like at the
Yeah.
disagree. My teachers are great at helping me. How on the disagree went up a little bit.
Slightly, yeah.
What students don't know if their teachers are supporting their learning? Makes me question when a student doesn't know. Or it's not applicable if the teachers at my school support my learning needs.
We should almost just take that one out for next time, because I mean,
Yeah.
Well, what does that mean?
and that's
My only thought was AOP, like,
Okay.
there are still teachers that support the learning, but they're not front and center all the time.
That's true.
But
Good.
But would a regular high schooler have, maybe a negative response because they're not feeling it? I don't know,
I think that would fall under more,
strongly disagree,
yeah,
right?
yeah, right.
Don't know, we'll give it strength.
Like I said, maybe we can, we're constantly, those are constantly evolving, those surveys, they will.
Just to make it, we try to have some constant things, but we try to make it, the questions make sense, you know, and
Yeah.
the students will help us, so the Student Advisory Council will, we've asked them already, Carrie Helgeson and myself.
What goes with the answer, I know.
It's super easy to answer.
Do you have to have like a,
Don't know, like.
or some teachers?
Depends on the question. We can,
Well, that might be good advice, we can ask the students what they think, you know.
but we do like Dr. Swing said, we did like a baseline, hopefully from the year before, so you can kind of compare and
If you keep it the
contrast.
same, then you can always see what the trends are from year to year, but
So, yeah, so it just gives us an insight.
you
to
just
some of
don't
this
know about the don't knows.
Yeah.
This is the staff perceptions. At my work site, I feel accepted for who I am. So now
See the don't knows?
the white is 2020, so. Yeah, so strongly agree went down slightly, but agree went up, you know, almost like 10%, so that's good. Students had a voice in selecting higher level courses for themselves, particularly in the areas of honors, AP and STEM courses. This is the first year we asked this question.
Don't know, it's really high.
Yeah,
Maybe
Well-
staff don't understand how they get that higher level of course.
Right, or how they use
That's-
their voice to do that, yeah.
or they may understand, but maybe they don't think students have much of an impact on that. That's, yeah, it's a,
There's more, you have to pare down that one, I think.
yeah. It's good insight. This helps us, again, adjust in the springtime. Number of students, so student internships and apprenticeships in the community. So in 2022, this was last summer, and I think Lisa Rodino presented to the board. Must have been September time, I guess, and this is, you know, the collage of pictures that we had. So we had 12 students finish internship, sorry, 12 start, 9 finished in 2022. And then this year, Lisa's working really hard to line up businesses. And so we have 17 companies and organizations, with many having multiple internships in 2023. So that's exciting. Any questions about that? Again, so this goes back to the partnerships and really having, you know, pathway for students who may not, you know, well, they want to go for high school, this maybe provide a path for them.
You know, like the percentages of like total businesses in Arlington, right? Or like different types, like variety. I'm just curious.
I just know last year
Yeah.
that they had a nice variety. They had, like this was at a senior center, the student here. This was
That's the
that,
chamber.
yeah, so that chamber that was, and then this the paint. It was like a
Oh, yeah.
paint studio or something, and there are others as well. It's just sampling, but, yeah, and Lisa, this year we have, I say Lisa has lined up even more, so.
We're trying to really touch base with having kids understand what industries are available in our town, because they drive by all of these buildings and they have, the buildings have a name of a business, but they have no idea that that could be a potential job for them or a career for them.
Number of participants in voices opportunities, and so. You said this before, I'm not really thinking.
That was for this year so far of the, so the community voices, we've had one on Zoom and we'll have another one coming up in the spring. Then the student voices, of course, we're not quite through all of the schools yet, but we're working on it. So there's 39 for just this year. And then, the adults, the 42 adults, that must be the total altogether.
39 students and 42 adults have participated in the student voice.
Okay. The 11, so now staff voices are virtual, staff voices is 24/7, they can fill out a survey 24/7. But what prompts them to do it, unless they really think of it, we do a staff newsletter, Gary puts out one once a month. And we put the link in there to remind them, and so we usually get a couple kind of. And then leadership voices will be with the administrators, and we've done it once a year. We do it at one of the DLT meetings. And we ask the 3 questions. Actually, there's a few more with the kids, but basically what's working, what's not, what suggestions do you have? And where do you see us in the future? What would you like to see differently? And
More sweets.
Yeah. The staff works.
Exactly. For staff too.
Wondering when they do the staff voices, is there like a response back?
no, because it's anonymous.
Oh, okay.
It's anonymous. And we'll have to kind of relook at that. The idea of the previous years, well, actually, this is now almost 3 years ago. Pre-COVID, we would go to the staff rooms and we put them there. But, and I don't know, that might be a thing to do again. It was kind of sporadic how people attended. We were hoping that through virtual, they would just more would tell us, what the thoughts. I think the ones that have been turned in have been very helpful. No, they actually tell about what they put down what they appreciate about their school or their department. They tell us about the district that they like or don't like, and then suggestions. So we're getting some cabinet reviews those, and we get some good info, but we don't know we kind of can guess that if they put their school, we can kind of think, well, at least know it's a teacher, or at least know it's a classified individual based on what they've said there. And so we have for voices, so we can keep increasing that for sure. Okay, quick share. That was quick. So thoughts on goal 4. Gaps, barriers, actions we're taking, but what other actions could we take that we're not taking?
So take a moment to write, and then we'll.
In 30 seconds.
So I'm just gonna open it up to any of those areas, gaps, barriers, actions taken, or possible actions to consider for the. Yeah.
I have a question, and I probably know the answer to this. Are we still requiring volunteers to be vaccinated, or is that gone away? I see nodding and shaking, which
It
one?
went away.
It went away. Went away. We don't require does our community know that they don't have to be vaccinated? Because I didn't remember. I can try to keep track of all the different rules because they keep changing all the different times.
Yes.
Have we said, come on back? There's no way.
References for vaccination requirements from the volunteer application and the page that links to the volunteer.
I think what action that could is just more of a welcome.
Come on back.
Well, come on back.
Yeah, that was kind of along my line of thinking was, because the public's perception in those surveys was still kind of low, and I feel like that went down during COVID. And so I feel like it's still recovering, and that was kind of one of the thoughts that I was having too, was that's recovering, how can we help that?
I think that's all the notes, so.
And if they can come and see, you know, the vibrant learning going on and all of that, that really does help. To bolster what they can say that we're doing, because if they don't know, if they're not there.
What about the volunteers that are coming back? That I was surprised. There was over 2,000. Like, okay.
I know our parent group, their PTA have struggled to rebuild. The last couple of years were a little hard on getting people just to step up and help out with boosters and athletics and things, so able to advertise more. How much fun it is to come hang out with kids and help them learn to read.
Yeah, maybe like, I know that,
And times table.
Yeah.
well, I know that Gary's working on a video for the kindergarten to show what we're doing in kindergarten and how awesome it is and how wonderful it is and how important it is. And so we could even do a video, maybe, I'm not saying right this moment, but about volunteering in our schools, come and volunteer, you know, we need you to be with us in the classroom and or something like that.
That gentleman today, that was, I mean, a great example that he would just pull the kids out, read with them and just cycle through. It was awesome.
You could have them speaking in the, like, why do you volunteer? And then they say, what is it? Okay, other thoughts?
I wondered if it was found to be more equitable maybe to do the voices over Zoom or, because I didn't do any voices before COVID, so I'm wondering if there's a consideration of doing some of those back in person again, as more things are coming back in person.
Like the ones that we did in person, we did a couple in person, that is the community voices, and we did serve meals, so that was we wouldn't be able to do that coming up again, but I don't know, I think it's kind of, some people are enjoying being able to participate on Zoom. I think it's, I don't know what the tipping point is on that, but we certainly could consider the idea of maybe having one on Zoom, maybe one in person. But I don't know if in person is a barrier. I think it'd be great to meet in person, but then maybe there's a barrier.
For some, it would be, yeah.
Maybe
some
some
it would be,
childcare
yes.
or.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I appreciate them because I often do not have childcare. It's really seeing people.
We've changed that, and this is the first year that we've done it a little bit different, where we open up to everybody, and I think that as that catches on, that might be really beneficial. In the past, they had to be individually invited, and that's a barrier, because if somebody doesn't think of them, invite them. I still think there needs to be reach out, but when we put out the flyer, when we put out the all call, it's everybody. You don't have to be, you just come, and so that part's good. We just have to. Some people are wondering, what is it? You know, what community voices? So we just have to. Keep saying that.
Clarify.
Yeah, And I know that we've had it, this has been going on for several years now. This is maybe the 5th year. So more people are aware of what it is. And as far as student voices, we are doing those in person, as you know. But there's still a question about the staff ones, if we need to do that differently than what we're doing right now.
We used to do staff work before the pandemic, we used to do from early.
In the staff room.
I think we got a lot more feedback when we were right there.
Yeah, we went there like that, maybe 40 minutes before school started, and we just sat at the tables in the staff room and just were there and had the sheets out and just had conversation. So, yeah, it was good.
I had a question about our constituents. When I've been on the phone calls to do the awareness of, doing your support for the bond, and you're kind of selling this. And maybe it's because it was evening, but it felt like I had many retirees. So I wanted to know, as part of our constituents, how much outreach we have towards the retirees, because they are voters. They don't have kids in our schools. They have a lot of complaints about what's going on in the schools, even though they're not really actively there, but they're part of the funding we need, right? So I would like to find out, what we can do or what we're currently doing to reach that audience. Because, and I don't even know what percentage of Arlington is retirees, but I'm thinking it's pretty high.
I think it's in the 60s.
Yeah. So we have young people, and there are young people coming in who aren't having babies, but they're young, and that's a tax base. But I think I just don't want to be on those phone calls again, asking for, let's pass this thing, a levy, whatever, we're gonna pass a levy. And it's a higher benchmark we have to reach, which also. But, I think we really need to get in there, because these folks are people who aren't in the day-to-day, they hear certain things, which is probably the negative. They're at the salon, they're at wherever they go, they're out there, they're meeting at Bluebird down at the cafe, they're doing that kind of thing. Those conversations are happening, but I think we need to be a little more making ourselves positively being a part of their conversations.
We do outreach them via the Golden Eagles program, which I'm not sure.
I've heard that name, but I don't.
Yeah, so it's seniors 65 and over.
Yeah.
They can basically get in free.
Yeah,
school
okay.
Games.
Okay.
For our sports, and then they get discounts through our plays. And so that's one way to connect with them.
Sure.
We also hold the pandemic pushed it all, but we do a pie social with them to invite them into a certain school.
Okay,
And we have the
They love
culinary
it,
arts, the culinary arts makes pies for them.
Nice,
and they
nice.
serve coffee and stuff, and it's a great outreach then. So those are a few things we've done. We're planning to do the pie social in the fall,
Okay.
usually in the spring, but
Yeah, we were gonna put it closer to November. Well,
Yeah.
I know it's planned on date, but just.
Yeah.
Just to launch the year. I think it's
Yeah.
way rather, in the past, we've done it in March-ish, like in the spring, and I just think it's better to start the year. Invite them, then we can invite them to come volunteer.
we probably have a play in the Christmas, there's stuff with the kids, things going on too. And I think that's all solid. I would, and I've asked Dr. Sweeting as well, since you're dialed into other districts more, what are other districts? Because that is a base that we need to say yes to. Because we're all yesing. We're a younger crowd, and we have kids in the schools, but we really need, I think, that's my imagination, is that we need to tap into that more, and we need the positive, we need to sell that group, because retirees, I know, they're like, I'm not putting any more into taxes, I don't want my taxes going up, the schools are fine, right? That's their perception. And I just feel like I'd like to be a part of transitioning them.
Well, and we'll have a very strong informational campaign as a district. We will be informing in multiple different ways, and try to figure out what avenue would be best to be reaching all of the individuals in our community, all those that have children, but those that don't have children, and what is the value of voting for a school question on the ballot? How does that benefit them in the community?
Yeah.
So we just have to inform them, what does it mean, and how much it's gonna cost, and all these different things. And so But also, I think it helps that the press releases, so when Gary sends out a press release, that helps for them to see the good news, the things that are good that are happening. The internships, the JORTC, you know, that, all of those things are good, because each of those, one may connect with an individual in our district, just one of them, not all of them, but one, and that's a big bloom. We do go out to different, like, speak in different
Budget,
organizations.
Rotary, and those are
Right.
addressing certain. groups too.
And being connected.
Can I make a comment?
Sure.
Part of the work that Strategies has done for us is a demographic, review.
Mhm.
And our, out of the registered voters, there's 55,000 registered voters in the district.
Yeah.
And 4,160, about 7.5% are over 65.
That's not much.
But their turnout in the 2020 election, which is the last time that funding portion, was 65% of that.
That's great.
That's where it is. So they're low in numbers, but they're strong in putting out their votes. Okay. We just need those other voters.
And they tended to favor our propositions.
Did they?
Yeah,
Surprising.
so they're really more advocates for us than
Okay,
opposition.
okay.
Thank you,
Good,
Brian.
good info. Thank you.
Yes, Mary.
I wanted to know how many things were translated into other languages, and I'm curious about our efforts to reach out to families that aren't.
We did use that. That was an ask it's been an ask recently, like in the last year, and we've been, it's, well, Gary, you want to share?
Yeah, so the first, the biggest one is gonna be the Wall Calendar Family Handbook that's translated into Spanish and Russian, the primary language, of course, English, but, so yeah, and the reason we do that is because there's so much information that's part of that is, some of it's required by law, but others just really good information for families to have. That's probably the biggest, most visible, translation that we have. But we also, I work closely with Carl Olson, and he, and, our Spanish interpreter, Marta, I can't remember her last name. And Natalia, what's that? Thank you, then, Natalia, who helps, translate all the Russian things. So when I send a school messenger out, it's not all of them, but, Marta and Natalia at times, they'll actually translate those because the school messenger system in the past, they have kind of an auto translate in different languages, and the feedback I got was, I have no idea what you just said.
Yeah.
So we do that look, but that's certainly a gap. I mean, it's something that I'm aware of, Carl's aware of, and Carl's been actually helping to translate some of those things too. His wife, I believe, is bilingual. So anyway, yes, so certainly that's a gap, one we're always trying to overcome. Because we certainly want to connect with all of our families, not just our English speaking families.
Yeah, definitely is again, but I think that we've become more aware and ask that question more often. We're not where we need to be, but we ask that, should this be translated? No, and we do have the resource, with the people to connect to, but there's a lot of information that goes out, like even on, so I think of all the things that go on Peach Jar. Well, that's other people's communications. But some of that, and I'm grateful that on our district website, we can translate just the main wording that's on there, but it doesn't translate the PDFs that are on there. So that's a challenge. So I mean, we know some of the barriers and we're just looking for ways to fill the gap.
So what do we do for our bilingual families that are learning English still? Like, if I get emails from my kid, I have a bunch of kids, and I get a bunch of emails from a bunch of teachers and staff. Is there a way for those families to get that same information? Like, the teachers just send these emails.
I know, Eagle Creek in particular, I've seen a lot of, in fact, when they send out I think school messenger from Eagle Creek, those are all translated to Spanish, because I get a copy of all those. So that one, just because they do have a higher percentage there. I'm not sure about the other schools, like Post a little bit as well. But yeah, it's definitely where the higher populations are, that's definitely they're aware of that and are making those translations.
The community voices was also in Spanish.
That's right, we did.
I was thinking about that with, the committees, because as far as I know, all the committees I'm on, we're all English speaking, we can all hear, you know, and so, I was thinking about that, how to, you know, considering more multicultural options for into the communities, because you know, we're opening up to all voices and partnerships. You know, we're all making sure that there's adequate representation.
I agree. I know that, Bethany Bilal, the principal at Eagle Creek, last year, at the last Community Voices of the Year, she had the parents that spoke English. I don't think there's like, she brought them into the school for that evening, so, but they did it on Zoom, so the group of parents were there in the room at the school while we were doing it on Zoom, but they had an interpreter there. And so when they were asking the questions like what's working, what's not, they actually had this cohort going on at the same time, but in their own, it could be translated, so it would be easier to understand, and then they provided us feedback. That was unique, that was good.
Dr. Sweeney, I know you do like that annual report I thought there's something you send out maybe a couple times a year, like the state of the district
Right.
or something. Would it be possible to get something like that printed? You know, like you get the directions in English and you flip it over and it's in French or Spanish. Could we do something, would that make any sense to have that in another language?
Well, we're doing for state of the district this year, but now I'm thinking, I wonder how we do this. We're doing videos.
Okay.
So, but there could be subtitles.
Subtitles, yeah.
Yeah, subtitles. So after we're finished with tonight, and Gary's gonna help us, we're just doing snippets of goals 1, 2, 3, and 4 of what the progress is, and then they'll be launched out rather than the writing, you know, we
Okay,
usually,
so this is a new up.
yes.
Gotcha.
Part of it's saving some money, but also it's a different format.
Yeah.
You know, might reach different people from a different perspective, you know, that like the video approach versus getting there's a lot of print. When it came out in our schools, it was a lot of work.
Yeah.
So this may be, we'll see.
And the kindergarten video that we're producing, which should be out the next week or so, that being translated into Spanish, right? They're calling it Marta or something.
Perfect. I think that.
But the subtitles in it, is that? how it-
They all have closed captioning,
Okay.
that's part of YouTube, but yeah, so that's gonna be, and again, effort to reach.
So when you say closed caption, is it closed caption in their language? or-
So when I upload a video to YouTube, I indicate whether it's English in the
Right.
United States, or you can do Spanish here.
So you're saying the person watching can then click that? Okay, I haven't done it, so I wasn't sure.
Yeah, there's a little,
I
you
just-
see about a lot of this.
Okay, good to know. Okay, yeah, I think that's perfect. Yeah, that's great.
Okay.
Fiscally responsible and family.
Oh, my God, that's a win-win. Nailed it.
One of the things I put down for possibly considering is that the survey results, maybe take some of those and do disaggregated results so that we can see that of who's saying they disagree. Is it, you know, what demographics does that represent, representation of, or what possibly what student groups maybe? And I think, do we ask the demographic on those surveys?
We asked the school and
Grade level?
I think we do ask grade level, I have to look.
Well, I'm just,
Yeah, nice to break it up.
Just-
That'd be helpful.
just wondering so that we could talk about that a little bit. So those are, Kyle, do you have anything that you'd like to share?
Absolutely. I would obviously have to say that one of the best actions that we're taking right now would be student voices, considering that I myself am a student voice. And then the biggest gap that I saw would just be the one question where like the vast majority of people said they didn't know how to select honors courses. That was the only gap that I found. So obviously that one was the biggest. But then past that, I said the barrier would obviously be not having swings. And then a possible adjustment to consider on a more serious note would be earlier, I can't believe it was either at the end of last year or this year, there was a survey where it was put out to us in advisory. So we got like tons more responses. And so just kind of doing something like that at the middle school level. I don't believe they have an advisory class in middle school, but they could like have teachers put out the surveys to students and maybe we'd get more responses outside of the high school too.
Yeah, no, good points. Thank you. I'll remember the swings. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so, any other thoughts? I think we're at the end of.
We are early. Does that gum up our plan, Debbie, if we go to executive session early?
Well, no, because we didn't have our break.
Okay.
The executive session was gonna be at 6:55, so we're really on time.
Okay. So the next part of our meeting is our executive session. So we will now recess this meeting so the board may convene in an executive session to review the performance of an employee. I estimate that the executive session will last approximately 10 minutes, during which time no final action will be taken. Following the executive session, this special meeting will be reconvened for the sole purpose of adjournment. We'll be back. We're going to my office.
I know, messed up nice.
Thank you.
We are back from our executive session. Our next meeting is Monday, March 13th, at the district office at 6 p.m. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
A second.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn. Madam Clerk. Director Kelly, President Levesque. Aye. Director Knapp. Aye. Meeting is adjourned. Have a great night. Yes. How's that? I scribbled a lot.
But awesome, this time.